Hey guys, welcome here to Waldor Orchids. We're shooting in the office today. You're probably gonna hear some background noises, a phone ringing, people talking in the background, whatever it is. But we're amping up for our open house, 5th and 6th of September 2025. If you're able to join us here, you gotta come. This place is gonna be bonkers. We're so excited. The hype around this thing is incredible. It's like it's not just an event for us. This is like us enjoying the hobby with you. Even though we're commercial growers, we're all still hobbyists at heart, and we're really looking forward to it. One of the things we're going to do is on the 6th of September 2025, we're going to have AOS Outreach Judging here at our shop. I know a lot of you may not be familiar with AOS Judging, but if you look at a tag, a lot of times you're going to see on the tag the acronym AOS, and that's American Orchid Society. That means that plant has been recognized by the American Orchid Society with some sort of an award. There's all kinds of awards you can get. Flower quality, you can get an award for a plant that is well grown, a large plant. There's awards for a new plant that just came on the scene. All different kinds of things. This AOS Outreach Judging is going to be sort of an educational thing for you. So along with being able to show plants and possibly get a flower quality award, the main reason for outreach judging is to educate people about what judging is. So just last week we had our regular judging. Mid-Atlantic is the second Saturday of the month here in Philadelphia area, and we sent 11 plants to judging last week. My sister's an AOS judge, so it's real easy to get plants to take up there because she's usually going. So it's kind of cool. She says to me, she says, "Hey, you have any plants?" I was like, "Oh, I'll look. At the end of the day, I'll check." And I figure I'll pull 3 or 4 plants and send them with her. So I pull out a couple, and a couple more, and a couple more, and it's just exciting to me because all of these plants that I'm pulling, I'm looking at, we grow a lot of seedlings here. Some of these plants we have 5, maybe even 10 years into growing, because this time of the year, in the summertime, bifoliate cattleya season, it takes a long time to grow these things up to mature size where they're really going to show like they should. We'll show you some of the different things about why we grow them to that size and all that. We'll get into that a little bit as we go down the road here. It's going to be a bit of a long video. If you can stick with us, it's going to be some interesting things all through the video. I'm not going to say wait for the end, but all through the video you may find a tip that you didn't know about, an aspect of judging you've never considered. So if you can stick with us, you're going to learn a few things. We've been doing judging for a long time. My dad became an AOS judge in 1979. That's the year I was born. I was the 4th kid, and I think he was like, "I'm out of the house for a while now." I'm just joking. But anyway, AOS judging's been a part of my life. I remember going when I was a kid, I used to go with Dad to judging. So I've been part of it my whole life, and we're going to show you a bunch of beautiful bifoliate cats. I don't know if we can quite pan to see what we got going here. We got a lot of really pretty stuff blooming in summertime right now. A couple things are crashing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too, because it's very difficult sometimes to show a plant just right. So our judging here is once a month. Now we do have the opportunity to go to North Jersey this weekend, and then the following weekend we could also go to National Capital, but that means driving several hours, up to 4 or 5 hours, depending on where we're going, one way just to show a plant. So it is really important for us as commercial growers to get an AOS award on our plant if we can, because it adds value to the plant. And that's one of the reasons we're in the hobby and commercial, is that we want to get our plants recognized. Because if we can get a recognition on our plant and then we hybridize with that plant, it's like showing a lineage. It's showing what we call it. Well, so it's almost like, say, stud breeding with horses. If you can say, well, this one's sired by so-and-so, well, that means a lot down the line. So we want to have that lineage in our plant. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different things this morning. We're just going to start this way and go that way for no particular reason at all. First one we're going to talk about here is Cherry Suisse. This is across a chocolate drop, crossed on a coney. So the chocolate drop's small, waxy red flower. We're actually going to have, I think there's one other chocolate drop in the group we're going to look at today. But a lot of summer blooming cats were made with chocolate drop. The original one was Kadama, flowers about this big, very slender, Rentiaca breeding, so you get these real skinny little petals. But this is bred onto a coney, which is a full-size standard. And what we end up with the benefit of here is I think this one's got about 8 flowers on it. You can see a lot of stems there, about 8 flowers. Medium size, they're about 3 inches, but the 8 flowers on the stem, where a coney is going to get 2, maybe 3. Typically, chocolate drop will get 12 to 15. So here we have a happy medium, about 8, but bigger flowers. But you get this sort of waxy red. The other thing you get is fragrance. This thing is off the charts. We say it's like sweet and spicy, so almost like sweet cloves or something like that. But beautiful, beautiful fragrance. The other thing you get on this type of breeding is longevity. Standard cattleyas, like if you grow Hardiana, Dowiana, Rex, Triumphans, any of those big flowers that bloom in the summertime on cattleyas, you're lucky to get a week. And that's one of the things we run into with AOS Judging. Is I'm going to show you some of the flowers here we showed last week are crashing this week, and they were just opening before judging. So it's difficult to get your plant to show just right. One of the things we had with our Cattleya Nancy off Linwood, that plant was over 30 years old when it was finally awarded. It got 89 points, but when it was finally awarded, it just hadn't to show right that year. So you got to get the right flower size, it's the right culture through the year. All these things go into how that plant's going to show at some point down the road, but it has to hit judging at just the right time. So this the judges talked about. The presentation is a little tough. You can see how it's a little bit tight together. You'd want to see a little more spacing in the flowers so the flowers can really open all the way. I mean, if you look at like this bottom flower, that one's pretty good, but then if you look up in the middle, you can see the shape on this one, how it's really kind of pushed up, and that's because it's opening up in between the other flowers. The shape of that one's a little bit tight, the presentation is a little bit tight on the stem. Probably could have been rectified by spinning the plant as it was opening. There again, I could probably show you there's a gap in the back here. If we had spun this plant, we probably could have got flowers all the way around. The spacing would have been a little bit better. You see, like this guy could have been turned this direction. So all the things we don't do as commercial growers because we're always hard up for time. So I think this is the only one I've got of this. I did show two of these. Unfortunately, the other one I think the flowers are finishing on. This is Summer Condo. So my favorite plant, Allen Condo, was crossed back onto one of the parent plants, Summerland Girl. This one looks just like a Summerland Girl, which was, by the way, just recognized, I think, with an 86 point AM in Hawaii about 2 weeks ago. So this one was shown the week following when its mother plant finally got awarded. Summerland Girl Orchid Glade goes way, way back. I would say to the 70s. I'm not sure about that. I know it goes way back. Jones and Scully got awarded with a silver medal from the South Florida Orchid Society. Plant was from Summerland Orchids, I believe it was, down in Florida Keys. Courtney Hackney actually was there. He tells me a story about him actually finding that plant and getting it to Dr. Jones or Bob Scully, I forget which one. But this one shows a lot of the same characteristics. I think what the judges didn't like about this, they're again a little bit too tight together. Really good flower count, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, about 17, maybe 18 flowers on that stem. But there again, we want the plant to be fully mature in the bifoliates, but at the same time, we got to be careful because sometimes it'll show better as, say, medium size when you have 6 or 8 flowers perfectly presented versus having 12 to 15 where they start to cluster a little too tightly. So you always run that risk of at what point in time does that plant show just right? Because once you pass maturity, that plant shouldn't go back downhill to where it's going to present as a smaller plant down the road unless we cut a small division and sort of rebooted it. Generally, they're only going to get bigger from that stage, and that's one thing we'll run into. Sometimes positive, sometimes negative. We'll talk about that in a minute. This guy here, I believe, I'm going to look it up. This is Martian, Cranberry Stardust. This is Granulosa crossed on Kodabec. And the Kodabec used here was our, pardon me just a minute, I'm going to grab my work papers so I can be correct. But the Kodabec used here is R. tetraploid, which was Linwood. And it's a mutation of the famous Carmela variety, but it breeds these really big petals on there. And this one got a 78 point HCC, which is a highly commendable certificate that would score between 75 and 79 points. In order to get an AOS Flower Quality Award, minimum score 75 points, 75 to 79 is an HCC, 80 to 89 is an AM, 90 points and up is FCC, first class certificate, and AM is an award of merit. Any award is great, whether it's an HCC, AM. If you get an FCC, stellar. FCCs are really hard to come by. You got to do a really good job to get an FCC. But even this one, great flower award there. I think it's right on for what the plant is. Great award. Spacing you can see is a little bit better here than some of the others. A little bit more spacing in between. Wide petals is what we're looking for here. Most of the bifoliates, a real quick tip on this. We want to look for wide petals. The wider the petal is, usually the better quality. The next thing you really have to is the lip. A lot of these bifoliates will have a tendency for this lip to curl this way or to curl under itself, and neither one is good. So you want the flattest lip you can get and you want the widest lip you can get. That's really going to determine the quality of that bloom. I'm sorry if I'm stepping in front of you there, Bill, but we'll keep rolling. So a couple things here. Next step, this is what I really want to get to. I'm very excited about this. These are raspberry smoke. I've probably heard me talk about these before. One of my favorite plants is Allen Condo. This is Allen Condo crossed on Maui Plum. Cross was made by Sunset Valley Orchids, Fred Clark. I saw these at a Redlands show in May. I don't know when it was. It's a bunch of years ago, 10, 12 years ago at least. And it was the last day of the show, and they had most of a tray sitting there. I think it was 20-some plants. I knew what the cross was because obviously Allen Condo is one of my favorite plants. I knew what the Maui Plum is. It's again, big bifoliate, shiny. So I was like, I know these are going to be good. So I buy the whole tray. I decided I'm going to grow every one of them up to flowering size. These are literally sibling plants out of the same plug tray, well down the road. And I want to show you a couple of characteristics about them. So I'm going to poke at AOS Judging real quick. Judges are always enamored by big plants. Now, I'm standing right next to that. I'm not a small guy. That's a 10-inch pot that's sitting in. It's growing in about an 8-inch pot, and it's a Cymbidium pot, so it's a big, heavy black pot. Double lead, super strong bulbs. This plant's grown to full maturity. It might get a hair bigger, but it's not going to get much bigger than what it is now. But you can see 2 big inflorescences, 10 to 12 flowers looks like per stem. Judges love this plant, and this one is called Hot August Nights. Named this a couple years ago. Judges gave this 87 points. I hate to say this, but we're going to go after it because it's something that's on my mind. We're going to talk about it. And this is not poking at AOS Judges. I have a lot of respect for these guys. They have a lot of knowledge, and I've grown these plants, like I said, from plugs, from a 3-inch pot, right? So I've been playing with them for 10 years. So I've seen the whole group. I've been able to analyze the whole group, look at the whole group next to each other, compare which ones are best, and then pick the ones that I think are superior. So with the 2 plants here, this one, excuse me, this one I think is what I would call an average flower. To me, if I'm judging this plant, looking at flower quality here, I'm a high HCC, probably 78, 79 points. Where this one, I actually put on the tag here, I put on here that this one is called Wild Cranberries, and at the bottom of the label I put FCC quality. I'm a little cocky, but I put that right on the tag. Now judges don't see that, but what I'm going to do, watch, I'm going to break a flower off. I did. It's okay. I'm going to break a flower off this. And Billy, you're going to have to zoom in on these. 2 big plants. I want to show you the scope first. Big plant, medium-sized plant. Also, the judges are right. This plant's not pretty. But AOS Judging is flower quality judging. You could literally cut off that inflorescence. And I said the phone's going to ring. It's okay. All right? You could literally cut off this inflorescence and you could ship this to judging. You could mail it to a judging center that's having judging that week. They have a representative at each center. And that representative's job is to take that plant, make sure that gets to judging. Now, obviously, when you pack it, there's probably going to be some bruising and all those sorts of things. It's not ideal, but you can get this to a judging center anywhere in the country. They have to judge it. So they have to judge just the inflorescence, not the plant. So the judges didn't like this plant. Now, granted, that plant's pretty ugly. It's grown rough, but that's okay. This one's not so much. The plant's big, robust, in the pot, all that sort of thing. This one's a little ratty. But the main thing we got to look at here is flowers on the individual scale. Now I'm going to put these next to each other. And what we talked about earlier is petal width. Look, if I overlay that, this one's petal width is more than twice the width of this one. The lips, see the lips? Much, much higher quality. Also, I like the color. See how the color covers the column here? This one has a 2-tone thing where the petals are kind of red and the sepals are kind of a greenish brown. This one's all one color. Nothing against that, but when you put the individual flowers next to each other, you can see this one is really, really superior quality. I'm going to maybe set them down right next to each other there, and you can see tremendous quality on this one. So one interesting thing is, because I deal with other nurseries, I've got some orchid friends out there I like to share some plants around. This was shown last week at Judging in Philly, and they passed on it. They did not give an award, gave this one 87 points, which I thought was too high. I would have been, like I said, probably an HCC, and only because it's really well flowered, grown to its full potential. Where this one, still good, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 flowers. I broke one off, so 11 flowers on inflorescence. That's fine. That's right in the wheelhouse. Even with 6 flowers, you could probably still get that awarded. But when you start getting up where you get a big head of flowers on a full-grown plant, that's when the plant's going to show the best. But what I was saying was I'd given a piece of this to a friend of mine out in Hawaii, Ben Oliveris from Orchid Eros. I know I always recommend Ben. He's got great plants. But Ben grew this plant. He showed it for judging the same day last weekend out in Hawaii. And guess what? FCC, baby. So same plant that was passed on in Philly got an FCC in Hawaii on the same day on a different division. So really, really interesting to see. But when I showed you that flower quality difference there, I think you can really see it when you put the flowers next to each other and you don't get carried away by just looking at the plants, because it's very easy to be distracted that way. Next one I'm going to show you here, this is Pop Pop. Donald Pop Pop Allen. Everybody loves this. Everybody knew Pop Pop was always like, hey, I got to have a Pop Pop plant. He loved George King Serendipity. This is George King crossed on Golden Slippers. Cross made by a friend of mine out in Hawaii, Lloyd Nakanishi made this, so shout out to Lloyd. Lloyd is really big on what we call Miyamoto breeding, so arch-shaped cattleyas, yellow, orange, red cattleyas, Hawaiian breeding lines. Lloyd's bringing all that back, so a lot of the crosses you buy off our website are made by Lloyd Nakanishi. This was one of them. He had given me permission to name this for my pop-up because pop-up loved George King so much. These come in all different colors, from pale, kind of creamy, almost a tan with a pink lip, to this color. We've seen some approaching pink, red, salmon. But this one, I really love the color combination with the dark lip, the lighter petals. This one was in between. This set was finishing before judging last weekend. This set was cracking literally Friday night. So this one misses judging. I don't know if it's awardable. It's probably an HCC, maybe a low AM if it's grown to its full potential, but still a beautiful flower, and it smells great. Everybody who walks in the office automatically attracted to that for color. So one of the things you're looking at on standard Cattleya is fullness. You draw a circle, you don't really want to see a gap in here, so petals could be a little bit wider. Presentation is pretty nice. It's fairly flat. You see a profile, fairly flat flower. You don't want petals leaning forward too much like that. You really want it to be as flat as you can. This one's ideal. It's not bad. We'll show you in a minute what a really flat flower looks like, but we want petal width to be a little bit wider there. If this petal is literally half a centimeter wider, it's probably an AM. So the difference is probably 5 points in the score just for that little half a centimeter. Next we'll talk about here is Love Triangle. This is a piece of plant I got from Art Chadwick down in Virginia. Everybody knows Art. Art's a great guy. He's got some great plants. And let's see if I can look up the parentage on this. I'm not 100% sure. So San Damiano, which is there again, standard red crossed on chocolate drop. So I'll show these real close to each other real quick. So you have standard kind of reddish purple crossed on chocolate drop, and here you have a standard red crossed on chocolate drop, and you can see the difference, the red versus bringing some more of the pinks through. So interesting to see almost sort of cousins there. This one's got nice flower size, a little bigger than the other bloom that we just showed you. This one's a 3.5, maybe even 4-inch flower. 6 flowers on the inflorescence, so a little bit on the low end as far as flower count, but the yellow in the lip, the big lip, really kind of sets the flower off. I think this plant could get a little bit larger, may get a few more flowers on a stronger bloom, but that one was awarded and got AM, 82 points, so very excited about that. Next one we talked about shape on the yellow one, and I want to show you this one. I've been watching this one come in bud for a while. This is primary chocolate drop breeding, which is to me just bonkers. So this is, oh, I'm not sorry, chocolate drop. I was stuck on chocolate drop, my bad. This is primary bicolor breeding. And bicolor you'll see in the lip. The spaded lip, little dot of color, the open column, a lot of times that's bicolor breeding. But this flower I want to show you in profile. See how flat that is? That's the ideal flatness for a flower. If you can get there, that's really, really ideal. And while this one was awarded, you can see the presentation of that flower versus this flower in profile. Yeah, so that one definitely doesn't have the shape this one has. So this is one where I've been watching it. Let me see. This is the first time it flowered on this growth. It's a 6-inch pod, it's breaking a double lead. Got this plant from Exotic Orchids in Maui. It's Mary Anderson Scarlet Beauty crossed on bicolor Braziliensis variety or Exotic Orchids. But we have waited probably 5 years to bloom this for the first time. Now with bifoliate Cattleyas, you don't just bloom it for the first time and say, ah, yeah, it's good or it's not good. You see potential, but now we got to grow it for several more years to see if it's going to be award potential. I think this is like an improved Egyptian queen, if you ask me. It's a wonderful, wonderful flower. But there again, with bifoliates, what we're looking for is the wide petal, flat lip. This is a really wide lip, almost 2 inches wide. The dotted color really sets it off. So this plant's got a lot going for it. It's ticking a lot of boxes, so very excited about that. Plant in the back here, they're going to snap a flower because there's only one in the back that looks half decent still. Starting to fade out, but still fragrant, man. This smells so good. It smells just like that sweet clove smell. This is Hauserman and Sultan Summer Spectacular. Now this one got bumped up. So this already had an HCC. I didn't look it up ahead of time, sorry judges. But they'll actually look it up and do some research. So there's different programs like American Orchid Society. You can get their Orchids Plus through the American Orchid Society. That's an award database where you can look up previous awards. There's other databases like Orchid Whiz where you can look up awards, orchids.org. I believe they actually list the awards on there too. And you can go in, you can actually look up measurements to see if your flower is bigger, wider petals, all those sorts of things will determine whether or not the award could get increased. So this had an HCC and was bumped up to an 80-point AM. So very, very deserving here. It's a classic all-time bifoliate, and if I could cheat and look at that, that's a Guttata hybrid. So along that same line, these are Leolia glossas. For those of you who watch us on eBay, you'll notice the one here on my left, the lighter color one. This is listed this week on eBay. These two are siblings, grown. These are Sunset Valley Orchid breeding. and it's Leolia glossa, seeing blue spots crossed on Leolia glossa exotic orchids. Both really high quality parents. Both of these were treated for tetraploid conversion, which should double the chromosome count, give us a little bit wider petals, a little bit sturdier flower. So I had selected both of these. You can see both of these have flowered 2 previous years. This one's actually 3 years, but both of them have bloomed for several years and we've been watching them. So we'll grow a group of plants out. I might grow anywhere from 2 up to 20 of something. Grow them out, flower them. We take a look at the flowers and then we decide what we're going to keep. We have to be very selective here because we have a very large collection and Uncle Bill's always after me not to save more plants because we only have so much room. So these 2 are ones we flowered out, sibling plants, and this is very typical for Leolia glossa to get this color, kind of a creamy color, spotting in there. This is a beautiful flower, and this is one that, like I said, I've grown this for several years. I've flowered now the 4th year, and I'm watching it every year to see if it gets a little better, if it's really kind of peaking. Now we already have an awarded Leolia glossa that's this color, and it's a little bit better than this one. So this year I decided to let this one go. It's on eBay this week. So you can check that out if you're interested. But this one I decided to keep for color. I've never seen one this dark before. The whole background color is more blue, heavier spotting, a dark blue lip. If I can get the flowers really close so you can kind of see really a tremendous difference in color. And this is not common for Leolia glossa. This is the typical color. That is not typical at all. So flower quality, I would say, is good, not excellent, but the color is like a 10. So in this case, we sort of go through check boxes, like does it have a nice presentation? Is the flower spike kind of up out of the leaves? Are the petals wide? Is the lip flat? We check all those boxes, and depending on the scale of all those boxes determines where it lands in the scale of what we keep or not. So this one's going to get at least a few more years. We'll grow that and see what happens there. One interesting thing I'll point out too, in a lot of this bifolia breeding, is our potting job, where I'm setting the old pot right into a pot, putting cork in. And you see this flush of roots, that's going to go right down to that cork, establish itself, and be completely happy with a pot in a pot. And we'll leave it that way until probably 2 years down the road before we'll change that over. Talk about this one real quick. This cross was made by a friend of mine, Joe Grzoffi, down in Florida. It's Maui Plum crossed on Chansing Gold. And he made this cross back, I don't know, it's probably been 15 years or more. But this is one that I saved out, much different than all the others. Because of the Maui Plum background, a lot of them will look more this shape. This is the only flower that came with like a bigger, fuller flower and this really solid big lip. This one got, I believe they call it sort of a provisional award because it's an unregistered hybrid. Now I have to go because my buddy Joe made this cross. Joe passed away a few years ago and he gave me naming rights to his plants. So now I have to take this plant, show him the cross number, when it was made, when I first flowered it. I'll submit paperwork to RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society. They'll register the plant. And once they register the plant, then I take that paperwork, go back to the AOS and show them the registration that's been registered now, and then the award goes through. So a couple more steps on something like this that was a sort of provisional award until we actually get the name to go through. Once we get the name to go through, then we've got a new plant with a new award. And this one I believe got an HCC. I don't have the paperwork for it, but the judges hung on to it because they were waiting to see the cross come through. Last one we're going to talk about is Duragon. This is Duragon Draco. This was part of the AQ, or I should say one of the AQs. I didn't know there were 2, but apparently there were 2 AQs. And AQ is award of quality. And award of quality will go where you show at least 12 plants, all from the same seed pod, all sibling plants. One of them has to be awarded, and then the other ones have to show good quality. It is a sort of subjective award because all the judges have to agree that it is good, and then all of them has to be unanimous that they all agree that it's showing good quality. This one, the judges passed on it. I was actually kind of surprised. I could easily, myself, if I was judging this, and I'm not an American Orchid Society judge, full disclosure, but I do see a lot of plants, and I am very familiar with the process. I would have easily been a low AM on this. I probably would have been 82, 83 points on it. Doesn't have a great flower count for Duragon, but the flowers are huge. Typical Duragon flowers are going to be maybe about 3 inches. This one's maybe 4.5. Much larger flower. Lower flower count, but that's typical for this particular plant. So this is Wine-Eye Leopard, I forget the other parent, Wine-Eye Leopard on a plant called Cosmo Roble, which I'm not really familiar with, but Wine-Eye Leopard, this carried a lot of the same colors, Wine-Eye Leopard, the spotting, kind of the rusty background, the lip on it, there again, is tremendous. Nice wide petals, big flower size on this one. So this one could have easily been a low AM. Judges passed on, and one of the things they didn't like was they said the flowers were too inconsistent. And you can see the color in here, but one of the problems with this type of breeding is that these flowers will color change through their whole bloom cycle. So depending on whether you see it when it just opened or whether you see it you know, a week down the road, 2 weeks down the road, this color is going to continue to change through the whole bloom cycle. But with spotting like this, you will get inconsistencies. You see where you have like a streak here and a partial streak there. They said it was too inconsistent, but to me, when I look at this from a hybridizer standpoint, I look at that and say, I want that. I want to have sort of the inconsistencies. I want to see what this will do in the next generation. And there's been some really great hybrids made with Duragon. So this is a cool plant. This is out of Orchids Paulista down in Brazil. I bought this at the either the Redlands or Tamiami show a bunch of years ago. I'm growing it up. So great flower there. A little disappointed that didn't get awarded. I think that's the only one that I would say, well, I should say that one and the Raspberry Smoke. I think they missed on a little bit, but there again, nothing against AOS Judges. The kudos to them because they do a great job. They have to be familiar with all kinds of plants. They never know if they're going to get a big bifolia cattleya or a little tiny species you can barely see the flower on, or a Phalaenopsis vanda. They get everything thrown at them all at once, and they have to look at it and make a decision right off the bat. So kudos to them. But if you've never seen AOS Judging, I would highly recommend, if you have a center near you, go watch Judging. If you're in the area here, come to our open house. It's going to be a laid-back thing. You can actually enter plants if you're unfamiliar with the process, or you think you have something high quality. Welcome, bring the plant in. We can kind of give you some pointers, send us some pictures. If you think it's something you want us to take a look at, we can look at it real quick and say, yeah, it'd probably be worth showing it or not. A lot of times I get that. I've encouraged my buddies to go to Judging. I had a guy just a couple of months ago, had a little mini cat. He said, well, what do you think? I said, I think you should go to Judging. Ends up getting an AM on it. So it's a cool thing to do. Once you get an award, you think you flower a plant and you're hooked on orchids. If you get an award, you're even more hooked. So definitely should check out AOS Judging if you can. If you're in the area here, you can get here on September 6, 2025. We are going to have Judging right here. You want to have your plants here by 12 o'clock that day. Judging starts at 12:30. They have to get registered, entered in for Judging. So don't delay on that. If you can get here by 12 o'clock and get some plants into Judging for you, it's a great process. It's almost like, you know, people will like bet on a sports game or something like that, say, oh, we have a skin in the game. It's kind of the same thing when you're not just watching Judging, but you have a plant in there that's going to get looked at, for better or worse. I mean, maybe you'll hear some comments that are negative, maybe you'll hear some positive, but it's all a learning process, and it's a great thing to go through. And you're getting people that are really on the high end of orchid knowledge looking at your plant and giving you a pointer. So definitely check out AOS Judging if you can. Remember, like, share, subscribe if you like the video. We'll keep putting content out like this, and love you guys, and we'll talk to you next time.